Welcome to the Midweek F1 podcast. This is the last look at the race just gone and the first look at the race coming up now. Hold fire, everyone, because we are so close to halfway through the season. Even though it feels like it's been a long season already, we're almost halfway through. As always, I'm your host, Nicola Hume, and I am joined by the F1 fountain of facts, Mr. Motorsport, Mr. Ben Edwards. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Nicola. Thank you so much. Well, what a fantastic Austrian Grand Prix, and a chaos in it as well. My goodness. So we are going to be looking back at what happened at the Red Bull Ring.
And as always, we have got a cracker of a guest for you this week. Kimi Raikkonen's former race engineer and F1 technical guru, Julien Simon-Chautemps, who will be joining us a little bit later on in the show.
Yeah, and Julian's going to help us with the We Need to Talk About feature as well. Unfortunately, it's about a team that Julien used to work for.
Yeah. There's a serious chat we need to have about that. And then, of course, we have our prediction championship of the world. Who did well from last week? Who did bad from last week? Producer Jim? Definitely Producer Jim.
And then we'll dive straight into what we might expect at Silverstone, one of the most exciting ones, of course, the birthplace of modern Formula One 75 years ago. I can't wait for the British Grand Prix. So let's get stuck in.
Right. Well, just when you thought there hadn't been enough plot twists so far this season, enter Austria. That was bonkers. It was very exciting watching those McLarens get so close to each other. I mean, we all know what happened in Canada. I feel like we got close to that. Do you feel the same?
It was incredibly close. And in fact, there was that one point when Piastri went deep and Lando actually just gave him enough room. Thankfully, they didn't hit each other, but well played by both. And actually, I was really impressed with what Lando Norris did this weekend. After he had messed up in Canada, there's no doubt about it. But in what he did this weekend, and particularly those early laps where the DRS was working for Oscar Piastri and Lando had to really think it through. That was impressive, what he was able to do. All the way through the race, it wasn't just about the battle for the win. There was plenty of other stuff going on as well. Ferrari were in strong form, but I was really happy to see the rookies doing well.
Yeah.
You know, because Liam Lawson, who's not a total rookie, what he is, it's his first full season. Yeah. And to get such a good result at last, 6th place for Racing Bulls, much better than Red Bull were doing. They had a horrible weekend. But also for Gabrielle Bortalto, he did a great job getting his first points as well. And I think he drove extremely well. So it's fun to see some of the very experienced top-level drivers fighting up front, but also some of the youngsters delivering, although not all of them delivered well. Max might be regretting one of the youngsters.
Well, there's some serious stuff to discuss. And as always, Producer Jim has picked out some stuff. So go for it, Mr. Producer Jim.
Okay, a first-lap schoolboy error from an actual schoolboy. Kimi Antonelli takes out Max Verstappen, leaving him 61 points behind Oscar. Is this now him done in the Drivers' Championship?
No.
Discuss.
No,
discuss.
It's not him
but
done.
Discuss.
We are going to discuss it, but no, it's not him done. He's not out. Absolutely not. There is still a chance, Ben. There is still a chance. I know you're going to disagree with me.
No, I'm not.
Well, don't try and put it politely, because I know that you're going to try and disagree.
I wouldn't say he couldn't, but I think it's much tougher now. It is tougher. That was a loss of points there. Yeah. And having lost points in Spain as well, with his little incident with George Russell, the last few races have not gone quite to plan. No. But I do not discount him completely, Nicola. It's all right. I know you're a huge Max Verstappen fan.
I do like him, Mo. Yeah.
I know you do. And he's brilliant. And he will perform well at other events. But the Red Bull, I don't think, quite have the car that they can compete with McLaren at every circuit. And just look at the difference they had. Yeah, he was a bit hurt in qualifying because the car went off just ahead of him. He had to back off on would have been a better lap.
Yes.
But then to get taken out on that first lap, there was absolutely nothing he could have done about that. When Kimi Antonelli dived down the inside because he'd braked too late, he went down the inside, he went past the two cars you'd think he would have been racing against, and then piled into Max Verstappen, who was already halfway around the corner. There was nothing he could have done about that.
I have to give a shout out to Max as well because of how calm he was afterwards. Just climbed out the car, went straight up to Kimi and was like, don't worry about it. It happens. We've all been in that situation. Fine. And then there were some really lovely pictures actually of Kimi Antonelli then going into Red Bull Hospitality, into the energy station, just to go and apologise and say I'm sorry about that, which I found it was all just good sportsmanship.
I noticed Kimi did keep his crash helmet on at that point, which I totally understood.
Producer Jim.
Yeah, what an amazing opening 20 laps from the McLaren pair with Lando coming out on top. Is this the pendulum starting to swing Lando's way? Discuss.
Oh, that's an interesting question. And I think, that battle that we were talking about between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri in the early laps, I was impressed by the way Lando dealt with it, because he was under big pressure. There was no doubt about it. He did a fantastic job through free practice, through qualifying. That pole position he took, yes, a few drivers, including Piastri, didn't get a full clear lap to sort of get a bit closer. But Lando was in a class of his own a little bit around the Austrian circuit. And the way he dealt in that early part of the race, to me, it's given me a bit more confidence that Lando is dealing with some of the difficult situations he's been through.
Yeah.
And now he's putting himself right back in there to say, I'm going for you, mate, my teammate. I think it's possible. But Oscar Piastri is also calm. The way he dealt with it, the way that he finished in second place. What did you think?
I mean, I do think that little social media break that Lando has taken over the last few weeks to kind of help his mental side of things, I think that has definitely helped. And you saw him attack the race beautifully. It was a really beautiful drive from Lando, and he held his position so well. So fair play. My question is as we're approaching Silverstone, he now has a whole stand named after him. It's now a bigger amount of pressure coming into his home race. How is he going to handle that? Because it's Silverstone and then Belgium. It's literally two of his home races. Will he be able to handle both of those situations? Will he be able to stay as calm as he did in Austria?
It's a good question. It is. Sometimes, though, the home race helps you. Once you've done it a few times, then it suddenly actually feeds you, like it does Lewis Hamilton, as we know.
Yes.
So whether Lando's going to be able to get that, we'll find out, won't we?
Producer Jim.
Gabrielle Bortalto has arrived. What a fantastic race from the F2 champ. Is this a lesson in giving rookies time? Discuss.
It's a good question.
Gabrielle Bortalto.
Yeah.
Smashed it.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so exciting. Also, how much pressure, like battling your own manager on track like that. Must be so much pressure.
That was brilliant. Yeah, him against Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
And then also afterwards seeing Fernando go over to him and congratulate him, And I was thinking, how does Gabrielle feel? Because he didn't, you would have thought, I could have taken that place, but he couldn't. And the fact that they worked together, but it was still a great result for Bortalto.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased for him. He's come up through, as you say, the world of Formula 2 very impressively. And it's been a bit of a tough one because the Sauber car's not been particularly quick. But they have improved it recently. And the fact that Nico Hülkenberg as well was able to go from 20th to get into the points, that both of them scored points. And Bortalto did a solid job throughout that race and did challenge Alonso. I thought that was great. And I hope we see more from him as we go forwards.
And driver of the day.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah. Very nice. Didn't see that one coming. That was not in my bets. Absolutely not. But over to you, producer Jim.
On the other side of the rookie coin, Franco Colapinto, taken out by Yuki, then nearly takes out Piastri. Surely there should have been a shout from the pit crew to get out the way. Discuss. I
mean, surely I think there was a shout, but I mean, with our guest on later on, I feel like this is a really, really good question for Julien for later on.
Absolutely. I think that's a good question because he did work for that team at one stage. And yes, the engineer talking to a driver was an important part of it.
Yes. So we'll save that question for Julien. That's what we'll do, Jim.
Right, you are. Okay. Honourable mention for Liam Lawson, 6th place.
Yeah.
With Tsunoda nowhere. Again, it has to be a Red Bull car issue, not a driver issue. Discuss.
Over to you, Ben.
You're keeping quiet on that one, Nicola. I was very pleased with what Liam Lawson did, but you're right. I think the Red Bull car, looking at the way Yuki Tsunoda is struggling so much, because actually in free practice he looked reasonable, did a decent job, but in qualifying it just all fell apart again for him. He has no confidence with that car. Max Verstappen can make it do remarkable things, but it is Max who is at such a high level, who can just tweak it, do things, make it work. It didn't quite work out this weekend, and we never saw his final best lap because he did have to back off on it anyway in qualifying. But yeah, the Racing Bull, the Red Bull rather, is not a great car at this stage, whereas the Racing Bull's car, it seems to be a more consistent machine, and Liam Lawson used it well.
Yeah, I don't even know how to answer this question at all. It's such a shame that Max didn't get to finish, didn't even get round one lap, because it would have been amazing to see, especially all of the fans that were there for him. It would have been so amazing to see him do pretty well. I don't really know what else to say. For me, I'm over the moon for Liam. I thought that was fantastic for Liam. Just such a shame that Isaac didn't quite get in the points this time around, but he's had a cracking season so far. And it's just one of those things with Yuki, and I really, really hope that he can find his feet and have a brilliant weekend at Silverstone. I think that's all I can say, because I like them very much. Producer Jim, was that all of the things?
That's all of the
Was
things.
that all of the things? Okay, well then let's move over to social media, shall we? Because I don't know if your social media has been as nuts as mine, but everyone's talking about the Formula One movie. You seen it?
I have.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, no, myself and my wife, we went off to our local cinema to watch it on that first day that it came out, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest. The way that it combines with modern Formula One, and of course I've watched Formula One for many years, and the way that it's worked with Formula One is impressive, I think, because it really is, this is the real sport. They're not just trying to make it up. This is part of the real sport. And so I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought Brad Pitt did a great job. For some people, of course, I do understand they'd be looking for something else in a film.
There's a lot of plot holes, but that's fine. I feel like maybe you've got to approach it not as a Formula One fan, but just someone going to enjoy a good Hollywood film.
Yeah, may well be. Although I do think it's so Formula One that I almost felt that if you're not a Formula One fan at all, you might be thinking, gosh, I'm seeing so much of this Formula One. Well, I loved it because I am a Formula One fan.
Yeah.
So seeing the cars out there so much and things, it was lovely. And seeing, what I also really enjoyed was it feels like they've worked so well with drivers and engineers to understand what really matters. You know? And so Brad Pitt would come up with some quotes that I would have known well from drivers in the past because of what had happened to them. And he was it felt like he was spot on.
Yeah, but there's little things, though, aren't there?
Yeah, yeah.
There's little things, like there's no way at Brad Pitt's age he'd be able to get a super license. And it doesn't make sense. If they're not in the top 3, they shouldn't be parking in Parc Fermé. Little things like that I've spotted all over social media that everyone's kicking off about. But I think, if you approach it as just a good popcorn filler, then you'll have a nice time.
There are some things that happen that you would think, oh, would that really happen? He surely would have been penalised for that. But it's a film, it's all part of the fun. So okay, I enjoyed it.
Have you seen it, Producer Jim?
Not as yet.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's been all over social media. We've even seen clips of Brad Pitt driving the actual Formula One McLaren from 2023, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He's had some fantastic experience and he's thoroughly enjoyed it, I think.
Who's going to be the better stuntman now? Would it be Brad or would it be Tom Cruise? I don't know.
Good question.
Yeah, need to fight that one out. Right, before we move on and introduce our guest, make sure you subscribe, please. If you are watching on YouTube, then click subscribe, click the bell button, then you're going to get notifications every time a new episode comes out, which, by the way, is every Wednesday after a Grand Prix, in case you haven't picked up on that yet. On social media, we are at Midweek F1, and we will start doing some shout-outs now, I think, from our reels on social media, because we get a lot of comments on there. So that's all
great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's time now for our special guest, and I'm pleased to say we're joined by former F1 race engineer Julien Simon-Chautemps. Julien, what did you make of the Austrian Grand Prix?
Well, it was great. Actually, I was there. I just came back last night, so I was literally on track seeing the action. So what stands out for me is obviously another 1-2 for McLaren. That was really, really well done from the team, and I really enjoyed the fact that they let Lando and Oscar fighting up to a point where they had to give a bit of a, let's say, a warning call to Oscar to don't overdo it. But that's really refreshing, really good to see a team, especially a team leading the championship, allowing their two drivers to fight for the win. I think that was a great thing to say. Then plenty of things happened, obviously, during this Grand Prix. Red Bull had a complete disaster. Max was taken out by Kimi on lap 1 at turn 3. Yuki had an absolute awful race. I think he's the least we can say. I've seen some on board actually where he stayed in the car at the end of the race in Parc Fermé saying, what the hell, what just happened, it must be a really difficult situation for them. Ferrari completed the podium with Charles and Lewis just behind. That was great to see. But actually, I think most of the action as well was on the midfield. I mean, Sauber scoring with both cars for the first time this year. That was great. First point for Gabriele, his first point in F1. So that was a great, let's say, Grand Prix.
So were there any strategic calls that you spotted throughout the Austrian Grand Prix that stood out to you to make the race a little bit more exciting? Because watching it on the telly, for us, was so exciting. But obviously being there, the buzz must have been insane, right?
Well, first of all, it was very hot, obviously. But there is always a lot of fun, a lot of Max fan. And you should have heard the crowd, basically, when Max got taken out. I was actually on the F2 paddock that's just below turn 3. That was quite impressive to hear the disappointment there. But in terms of strategic call, I think it was, again, very interesting to see how McLaren managed their two drivers with a slight offset in the tire strategy. I mean, it was all about, the undercut is extremely powerful on this track. Simply because there is a lot of straight, the pit lane is relatively short, so it's relatively easy to undercut. And I think they managed very well. Ferrari had to manage their car on their side, doing a lot of lift and coast to mainly protect the brakes. So they were clearly running into brake issue early on, and they had a prediction of this going worse. They had to do something basically to protect that. So that were, on my side, the main point of interest on the strategic side.
Well, that's interesting. Julien, one of the key things about Formula One is the relationship between the race engineer and the Formula One driver. And in fact, this last weekend, Max Verstappen didn't have Gianpiero Lambiase with him. He had Simon Rennie with him. How important is that relationship with the engineer, and who does impress you with a very good relationship at the moment?
Well, first of all, I know Simon very well because we worked together back in the days in Lotus. He was actually the race engineer of Kimi for the famous "Leave Me Alone, I Know What to Do" in Abu Dhabi, and since then he has moved to Red Bull, let's say, in a more factory-based role. So I thought it was very interesting to see him coming back for one Grand Prix. But obviously, this relationship between the race engineer and the driver is extremely important. And to be perfectly honest, I think the strongest relationship and the one that reminded me the most when I was race engineer is between Gianpaolo and Max. I mean, they know each other very well for many years. They won a lot together, and they act a bit like a married couple.
It's a bromance. Yeah,
it's really good. All the other, if I have to be perfectly honest and perfectly blunt with you, I found it a bit corporate, a bit blonde. It's a bit like, oh, please, can you do that? Oh, don't you mind? I mean, it would be good if you could do that instead of come on, let's get on with the job and let's get that going. Something that stands out for me is the relationship between Ricciardo, Adami and Lewis. I think is quite tricky at the moment.
Yes.
And you could hear Lewis being quite, let's say, sarcastic or searching for more information.
Lewis wasn't keen on pitting and they were trying to bring him into pit and then he wasn't keen on it. But it seems the last few races, Lewis and his engineer, they just don't seem to be clicking whatsoever.
It's a very difficult one because I've known Ricciardo for years. He's a very, very good engineer. But unfortunately, the relationship between race engineer and driver goes beyond the technical skills. For me, I always say a good race engineer is a good communicator. You first need to listen and understand what the driver wants. And obviously, across my career, you don't talk the same way to a Kimi Raikkonen, a Romain Grosjean, or a Jarno Trulli of the situation. They're all different individuals, all human, and a good race engineer is someone who can adapt to these various human and these various, let's say, aspects around the racing.
Yeah, Julien, this was going to be my next question to you, actually. I mean, because obviously you engineered the likes of Jarno, Romain Grosjean, Kimi Raikkonen, etc. So how do you kind of build that relationship as a working relationship with such different characters, with so many different people?
Well, I would say, first of all, you need to sit down and listen. just listen what they have to say and understand what they want. I remember that was part of the process with all the driver I was working with. So especially the one I didn't know before, you just listen, understand their expectation, the amount of information they want while they are driving, the amount of information they want while we are doing the debriefing, the engineering debriefing. But I think the most important thing is to build this trust and to don't, let's say, lie to a driver, because a lot of things are happening in a race team or in a Formula One team, both at the racetrack or at the factory. And sometimes you have to a little bit be careful with what you're saying to the driver, because, for example, I give you an example. Sometimes you have to bring only one front wing or one development suspension at the track, and if it's not your driver that is chosen, you have to really make him understand why it's like this, and to reassure him that he's not being preferred for this upgrade. So it's a bit of a tricky situation, and it's a balance to have between being honest and building the trust, between the driver and the race engineer, which I do believe this trust at the moment is not existing between Ricciardo and Lewis.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I'm sure as a race engineer, when you're doing it all the time, you can't be shown to have favourite drivers, but you've worked with many over the years. Who did you enjoy working with the most?
Oh, that's a $1 million question, a very tricky one. Well, to be honest with you, I always kept an extremely good relationship with all the drivers I work with. I mean, I still speak to Romain and Marcus a lot. Spoke to Marcus a few weeks ago. I texted with Romain. Kimi now is busy with his son karting in Italy, so it's a bit different. But they're all different. They're all human, and they all gave me, a lot of pleasure to work with. In different degree. You know what I mean? But if someone comes out, it has to be Kimi, because Kimi was a driver I admire since I started my career. And actually, I started in Formula Renault 2 liters back in '99, and he was as well in Formula Renault 2 liters. And you remember he went straight from Formula Renault to a test in F1 at the time. And I had the opportunity, the chance to work with him in Lotus in 2012, which for me was amazing, because if you can work with the driver you admire the most in the past, as a race engineer, it gives you extra motivation and extra kudos, let's say, to work well.
I totally understand that, actually. I can totally understand that with Kimi. And he was a surprising man. He once, as I was a journalist trying to get into the paddock and my card didn't work, he actually turned around to help me. And I thought,
really?
Kimi, why would you do that? You're not into media. But yeah, he's a man that you don't always recognise or know unless you've really worked with him. And that's what you've done, of course.
Yes, absolutely. He's actually a great human guy. I remember coming with my son and my wife in Silverstone on a Thursday a few years ago, and he was in his, when you come into the Sauber hospitality on the right, you have their shower room, their bed, their bedroom basically, and I just called him and said, can you just pop over and say hello? And he spent like 10-15 minutes with us, talking to my kids, and I asked them how they were going, if they're doing go-kart. It was just a nice moment, but this little moment, the people don't see what they see. They will only see the Grumpy Kimi on TV and the one answering for the million times the same question from unfortunately the journalists. Some of them were asking fair question, but you have to agree that most of the time the questions are the same.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
I do have to ask, because we're on the subject of Kimi. Now, back in 2007, he had the comeback of a lifetime to then come back and win the championship. He was quite a few points behind two McLarens that were battling it out. And that seems to be the case so far in 2025. We've got two McLarens out front. Instead of Lewis and Fernando, it's Oscar and Lando. And potentially, do you think that there is a chance that Max could pull a Kimi Raikkonen and just smash it for the rest of the season to then go and win the championship? Do you think that's possible?
Well, let me be very clear there. For me, at the moment, the best driver on the grid is Max. is above everyone else. The problem is that he had to deal with a car which is quite tricky to drive since, it's not new from this year. This car hasn't been easy to drive for the past years. Up to now, he managed to, let's say, get the most out of it, but it's getting more and more difficult. And I think that McLaren has such a technical advantage on their car now that you would have asked me this question a few races ago. I would have said, yes, it's possible he makes a comeback. Now I found it extremely difficult because another point of discussion will be that, as you know, next year the team or a very different car will be introduced. So a lot of resources will be moved soon around the summertime to next year's car. So the possibility to upgrade the current car will be extremely limited. So I see that difficult to happen.
We're nearly halfway through the season, so we've still got 13 races to go. So there is a chance that anything is possible. But we also have to ask you as well. We watch you on F1 TV very often, which is always wonderful to see. Is there anything else that you're up to at the moment?
Well, I've done few appearances on F1 TV, which I absolutely loved. I think I really appreciate explaining to people what was my life for the past 15 years and try to explain as well something on, let's say, some complex subject in a simple way. But yes, I do a lot of things in the background. Basically, I've created two companies, JSC7 Engineering and JSC7 Talent, and I'm focusing on the scouting of new driver. So I've taken on two drivers at the moment, one in karting and one in F3 as their manager. And I've also created JSC7 Talent, and with this company, we're focusing on the recruitment of very senior engineer in motorsport. So I do stay very much involved in racing in motorsport, but in a different platform, in a different way to what I used to. So that's basically what I'm doing at the moment.
Oh, that's good stuff. Well, it is time for us to do our We Need to Talk About section, and you can really help us with this, Julien. This week, it's going to be about your former employer team, Alpine. And we just see that they're struggling because they are absolutely last in the Constructors' Championship at the moment. Flavio Briatore came back to the team with great fanfare and talking big, but no points since the Spanish Grand Prix. And Gasly has scored all of their points, but it's only 11 points. So Alpine really look as though they're struggling. Julien, what are your thoughts on that team? Is this all about going forward into next year or what else?
Well, as you said rightly, I spent 6 years in Enstone, so it's a team that I know very well inside out. And there always been like a group of racers. We were going there was no politics, no corporate stuff. We were just going every week, purely racing. But this team have changed a lot over the years. They have lost a lot of employees, especially recently, the last, I would say, 2-3 years. And they are trying, I think, to find a new vision for the team. Obviously, Flavio decided to choose the Mercedes engine for next year, which is, I would say, a short-term solution that could pay off because it's extremely likely that Mercedes will have a very good power unit like they had in the introduction of the hybrid in 2014. So on this side, I think they will be performing. But they have lost as well a lot of people to various teams, including Cadillac recently. And I know for a fact, because now I'm working on the recruitment side, so I know a lot of things that are happening in the background as well. But they need to restructure the team. And for me, what's very important is to give the people a clear vision of what do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be next year? Short term, but also mid term. If you don't have this clear vision and you also don't have a clear hierarchy of who does what, who is in charge, then it creates problem. It creates confusion within the driver, it creates confusion within the engineers, the mechanics. So at the moment, I do feel there is a bit this lack of let's say, being a race team and going every weekend to do their best. That's a bit the feeling I have.
I'm assuming you saw the comments from Oscar Piastri saying, "Oh, it's clearly Alpine just trying to screw me over again," after Franco Colapinto basically run him off the track at that point. Did you spot that? What were your thoughts on that?
Oh yes, yeah. That was a clear dig at Alpine. To be fair, I watched the onboard. To be fair with Oscar, I watched the onboard after. Franco clearly had his race engineer coming on the radio mentioning the blue flag. So he had this first information. You have to understand the driver on their dash, they see quite a big thing like this saying blue flag.
Yeah.
So the race engineer saying blue flag, on the dash saying blue flag, the light panel saying blue flag. And in this kind of occasion, especially what they call the solid blue flag, which means that you are within 1 second range, you have to, even if you're in battle, you have to stop.
Yeah.
You have to stop, move aside, and let the leader pass. And he didn't. He kept his fight, and he nearly cost Oscar very dearly. So
Yes.
not the best move from Franco there.
Absolutely right. No, it was a bit of a tricky one, that. And it's very interesting what you're saying about people moving on. I met a neighbour walking her dog the other day and discovered that her son, who works for Alpine, is going to Cadillac, a bit like you were talking about. Yeah, Julien. Just there.
Oh, Cadillac are just collecting people then, aren't they?
Yeah. So that's really interesting. But that will all come forward, of course. And what we're thinking about now going forward is the next race. And the next race, the British Grand Prix, we're all thoroughly excited about this, of course.
Yes.
It's going to be a big weekend. But Julien, it's really good to be able to ask you about this, because what we've seen in the last few races, for example, McLaren, so strong in Austria, it wasn't perfect in Canada, which is, I know, a very different layout of circuit with those chicanes. It didn't seem to suit that so well. But in Austria, it was so strong. You know the Silverstone circuit inside out. Do you think that McLaren is going to have that pace around the Silverstone circuit that the others are really just not going to be able to keep up with?
100%. I do believe Max will be closer, because it is a circuit as well where the driving makes a big difference. You have to remember Austria, at the end of the day, you have 4 or 5 corners. That really matters. In Silverstone is a different story, and I think Max will be closer, but definitely the team to beat will be again McLaren. I think that there is no doubt about that. They have been strong everywhere. Except probably Canada. That's a very specific track, but there will be ahead again.
Well, also potentially worth keeping an eye on Lewis, because he's been on the podium for the last 11 years, something like that. 11 years he's always been on the podium at Silverstone. So could this be his moment for Ferrari?
Well, definitely he's a circuit that he loves, and he has done extremely well over the past year, and I'm sure he will do everything he can to prove he's still there, and the first year with Ferrari in Silverstone, so he will try his best to be there. But I doubt Ferrari will have the car to fight for the win this year at least.
Depends if it rains. He's always amazing in the rain. That's not what he won last year. Yeah.
They were saying there's a 55% chance of rain this weekend.
Well, there we go.
On Sunday.
Oh no! Well, it was saying Saturday, so who knows? I mean, it's the UK. It's going to change every 5 minutes. Who knows? Right. So obviously, on this podcast, we do our prediction championship of the world. Now, the rules of this game are fiendishly simple. So all you need is to tell me who you think is going to be P1, P2, P3 for Silverstone. And even though fastest lap doesn't count anymore in terms of F1, it does on this show. So we need P1, P2, P3, and fastest lap. Now, no pressure on you, Julien, but as it stands, Team Guest is in the lead. So here are the points so far. You've got Team Guest in first place with 48 points, because there were 4 points for Oscar in P2. That was Nicky Shields that got that right. I'm in second place with 40 points, because I also got 4 points with Piastri in P2. Ben, you are on 33 points. You got a couple of points for Leclerc in third, so well done. Producer Jim got a whole lot of nothing last week, so you're on 32. So over to you, Julien. We need your P1, P2, P3 and fastest lap, please.
So Oscar for the win.
Oh.
Lando second, and Max P3. And fastest lap, Oscar.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, that does make sense to me, and I think I'm probably going to go for something quite similar, to be honest.
Go on then.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for. You're going for Oscar, haven't you? So should we go for Lando or should we go for Oscar? I'm certainly encouraged by what Lando did last.
He's got a whole stand named after him this season.
Yes, he has.
Yeah.
Yes, he has. So go on. I'm going to go for Lando first.
Okay.
Oscar second, and I'm going to go for, because of the history that Lewis has at Silverstone, I'm going to go for Lewis third.
Okay.
And fastest lap, Max.
Okay, fair. All right, so I'm going to go Max P1. And that's not because I have a contract with Red Bull. It's not. I think it'll be Max P1 because I think he obviously is a tad frustrated after Austria, and it'll be nice to see him come back fighting. And obviously I'm rooting for him. P2, I'm going Oscar. P3, I'm going to go Lewis because I think just there's something about Silverstone and Lewis that just works really, really well together. Fastest lap, I'm going to go for Lando. But I think it's going to be Lando v Lewis fighting for P3, and I think Lewis will just about get it. Producer Jim?
So I'm going to go full British fanboy for mine. I'm going Norris first.
Norris.
Russell second. Hamilton third. Fastest lap Russell.
Fastest lap Russell. You're going all the Brits.
Mercedes do well there, and I didn't put it in my top three, but I do think Mercedes, they always go very well at Silverstone. So George will be one to keep an eye on. There's no doubt.
That's a shout, isn't it? Right. Also on this podcast, Julien, we like to finish off with a random fact or a random story from our guests. We have honestly, when I say random, we have had some really random stuff on this show. So the weirder it is, the better. But over to you.
Well, I have a really good one that actually it happened in Silverstone in 2019. And you probably remember we were deciding to pit Kimi or not during the race. And he came back with a famous. This time he was not leave me alone. I know what to do. It was more like I told you. It was not the right decision to come in, and that was a complete, let's say, masterclass of problem that can happen during a race between the pit wall, let's say, and the race driver. So there was a lot of decision: do we pit? Do we don't pit? So. We decided to pit last minute. We decided to change our decision, and obviously F1 being very clever, they put all the video, the audio together to make it look like we were very stupid and didn't know what we were doing. But I think if you watch this YouTube video of me talking with Kimi, I think it's quite interesting. And I still use this video as well when I do conference to explain. That sometimes a bad decision is better than no decision at all. But that was I think a very, very strong moment for me in Silverstone.
Well, fascinating time. And of course, it's been great to talk about Austria. It's been lovely to talk about the future of Silverstone. Next week, we'll be talking about what happened at Silverstone. We'll be talking about where we've got to at the halfway stage of the championship. And we'll be thinking forward to round 13 as well, the Belgian Grand Prix. So I can't wait for that.
We're very excited about Belgium. It's going to be brilliant. Julien, thank you very much for joining us. This has been actually very insightful.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you for having me.
And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, leave some comments in the section below because it's all good for our algorithm. Wherever you're listening, then make sure you click follow. And also, hey, on social media, if you haven't followed us yet, where on earth have you been? Because we are at Midweek F1, and anytime we drop a reel, leave us comments because we're going to start doing shout outs. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.